Hi, my name is Roy Collin and welcome to the show. I've also got 5 podcasts: The Awakening Podcast, exposing fraud and corruption, but with solutions; the Crypto Podcast, talking about all things blockchain, NFTs, crypto; the Meditation Podcast, talking about all different types of meditation, but there's also meditations there from 1 minute to 2 hours. And the other one's the Learn Polish Podcast. So if you're interested in learning Polish, you can do that. And the other one is Speaking with Roy Collin. And I just have guests from around the world talking about either public speaking or also about their book or just general life in general. And you'll find everything on bio.link/podcaster. I'm also a podcasting coach. And you see the QR code there, and it's also on my link as well. And if you're interested in actually going on some podcast shows, I'm helping people doing that. Or if you're interested in sponsorship, you can contact me. And I'd like to thank my sponsor, DanielPacker.com. He helps people with anxiety, stress, and addictions. He's got a 90% success rate, and you only pay if you're successful. So be sure to check him out, DanielPacker.com. I hope you enjoy this week's show. Welcome to the Speaking Podcast. You can find all the episodes on speakingpodcast.com. My guest today from the USA, California, speaker, which definitely helps for this podcast, serial entrepreneur, coach, 3 times best-selling author, not once, not twice, but you have to do it 3 times, and you probably do it again a bit more. You've been known as the trainer of trainers and the coach of coaches. Please welcome Christopher Howard.
Thank you. So nice to be here with you, Roy. This is awesome.
Yeah,
I'm ready to have some fun. I miss the Irish accent is my favorite accent in the world. I was gonna say I usually like it with the ladies, but it's perfect with you as well. It is my favorite accent. I think it's awesome.
So, I just kind of hit the bullet points, but you might let the listeners know a bit more about Christopher.
Sure. I used to, well, if you've got a lot of UK listeners, I was out there in the UK quite a bit back in the day, about 10 years ago. But I've been in the field of accelerated human change and transformation for 25 years. Grew up with roots in NLP and hypnosis, and taught the NLP trainers trainings and speakers trainings for years and years, and still teach our speakers training today. I've got a couple of different trainings and speaking that I teach today, but I've been blessed. I've been able to travel all over the world, helping people to change their lives, transform their lives. We've done over $100 million in sales of our seminars around the world. And for me, that's just a testament to how many people have enjoyed the programs that we do and stuff like that. So I remember when I was starting on my career path, I wondered what skills would I need to be extraordinarily successful, and speaking and communication were always number one above all else, I think. And so that's why it's kind of apropos to be here with you here today. So thanks again for having me.
Yeah, no problem. I suppose we can touch on how you actually got into speaking, but what I'd love to, because when I was growing up, I did lots of different things with martial art. I did kung fu for 6 years, and I did kickboxing, boxing. And I see you've not only have you done different things, but you've got black belt. You a 5th dan as well in something like this. You've got serious martial arts experience. So when did that start, and how has that helped you in your career?
It's helped me immensely. It started when I was 10. So I started with Kempo karate, and then I started training in a system called Sung Lung Mu, which is Twin Dragon Temple Kung Fu Wushu. And I did that that's what I got my first black belt in. And then Ron Van Cleef is known as the Black Dragon. He's several times world champion, but back in the day, he's got an interesting style. If you remember the old television show Shaft, right? It was like he's a black martial artist, and he's got the bell-bottom jeans, still kind of cool, like that thing for like stepping out of the 70s. And Ron Van Cleef and Owen Watson were my 2 instructors, and they were just kind of like that. It was really a couple of neat guys, a lot of style and essence and charisma to them. And so I went and I trained with them, and then I trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I got a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is my absolute favorite. And I've got a 5th degree black belt in Chinese Goju under Ron Van Cleef. But it's been fun. I'm doing a martial arts movie at the end of this year that I was executive producer on with Cynthia Rothrock and a bunch of 80s martial arts stars. So good fun stuff.
And what I think is that people don't realize is when you're actually doing a martial art, eventually, as you're kind of going through the belts, then they'll let you kind of train the newer people coming in. But that's giving you kind of stage presence and confidence in projecting your voice and everything without you even realizing it at the time.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get experience like that without realizing that they have the experience, right? So like I was teaching children's classes, martial arts classes when I was 13. And then I got into acting at the same time, which was all voice and projection and that sort of thing. And so both of those things early on were shaping me when I was, in my early teens, and they were loves. My father was really into Bruce Lee and Elvis, and so they'd watch Elvis movies and Bruce Lee movies, and I'd look at that and go, okay, that's what I want to be, a martial artist and an actor, or be on or be performing in some way. And so all of that kind of came together. But yeah, when you think about it, the most interesting thing for me about speaking is when I first decided that I was going to get into a career path that had where I was going to be speaking for a living, where I was going to be teaching people content and helping people to transform their lives, it seemed so different from everything I had done before. And as long as I was sorting by differences, it was very difficult for me to take it on. But once I started saying, wait a second, how's it exactly like what I've done before? How's it exactly like teaching children's martial arts from the time I was 13? How's it exactly like, I worked at Club Med for 6 years, and I did all the microphone work and stuff. How's it exactly like that? The entertaining that I was doing there. And when I started thinking in that way, it brought this whole new life to my speaking. And it like, our events went through the roof. I was so much more authentic on the platform. So all that came from looking at how are those things just like speaking, and I think that if more people sorted by similarities rather than differences, they'd have an easier time learning.
And like a lot of people, like they don't know how to make the transition to being paid. Like, what way did it work for you, and what would you recommend people? Because some people say, yeah, take 200 free gigs and just keep going out till somebody decides to pay you. And everyone has a different way. I'd like to know your thoughts on that.
Right. I don't. I'm a fan of taking our destiny into our own hands. I'm not a fan of waiting for somebody to reward me with, saying, "Hey, I'm gonna pay you something." Right from the beginning of my speaking business, I decided that I was going to own my own destiny. I was going to promote and own my own programs. You think of like Ben Affleck and Matt Damon going out and they're saying, "Hey, we want to produce our own movies. That way we can be in charge of it." And so that was my thought as I started. And I remember there was another speaker that was starting around the same time. If you know, Robin Sharma. Robin Sharma was starting right around the same time that I was. And I remember at the time, this is probably like 2003 or something like that. And he wrote the book, Leadership Wisdom from the Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. And at the time, his whole business model from a speaking perspective was keynote speaking. And it was probably, I think it was my first year in business, because I think we both he did $600,000 in revenue that year, and as did I. But our models were so different, right? My model was owning my speaking hub, doing a weekend seminar, and then having other offerings that we would offer. And his model was booking these one-off gigs, and then maybe it might be a lengthier thing, or it might be multiple, like a repeat performance or something, but same amount of revenue, two totally different models. And then as I continued to grow, our model was scalable so that we were able to we at one point in time, I had 3 seminars happening somewhere in the world at the same time with different teachers that were teaching them, and hundreds of people in those programs. And it was a whole lot of fun. But the speaking part of it has been very, very interesting. I remember I talked to Deepak Chopra's sister-in-law, their name's Geeta Singh, early on when I was starting. And I said, how do you build a speaking business from nothing? And she said, you get out there, and she said, and it's going to be a referral business. It's just your clients are going to be your best fans, and they're going to spread the message. And I said, boy, that sure seems like a slow way to do it. And she said, yeah, but that's really what happens as you do that. And then she had recommended to me, she said, own your own territory and then have foreign promoters do other territories. And so that I took to heart. We owned the US, and then we had a promoter in Australia that was very effective, that then rolled us out to the UK. And then we had a promoter in Hong Kong as well. That was one of the biggest, actually the biggest promoter out there, I think. So, those were kind of the strategies as we were starting.
And how important is it? Because I mean, like, you mentioned a few, like Robin Sharma and different thing, like the circle, because obviously you were kind of owning your own space, but like people that kind of have your back, how important is that you kind of surround yourself with fellow speakers if you're going on events, that you're kind of opening doors for each other? Because I mean, at the end of the day, sometimes you go to an event, they don't want you back, they want somebody else. And if you can get your buddy, who gets you in as well, is that, what's your thoughts on that one?
I don't like to play a lot of games and stuff, but I'm, like if I can, the reason why a promoter or of a multi-speaker event or something like that is going to want you back normally is because you did a good job, because the people loved you, you got 90% off the chart positive feedback. And in addition to that, if there was some sort of an offer made, you made that offer and there was, financial reward for everybody. And that's how those types of things are judged. So as I was growing my speaking business, my effort was to make sure that I was hitting those numbers, that the things, the statistics that would, if you were to measure a speaker and say, was that a successful event from a financial perspective and otherwise, I got really good at hitting those targets, so that when I would go out and I would speak to a promoter or somebody running a multi-speaker event, I could just tell them my numbers. And if I told them my numbers, it's like, oh yeah, we want that person there. I remember there was one speaker that everybody always knew they wanted him on the card. The reason why he would do $250,000 in sales every 90 minutes when he would get up there, right? So that I remember everybody's like, oh yeah, well, I want him on my multi-speaker platform, because ultimately, you've got to be successful at what it is that you're doing to be able to run it again and again and again. And for me, while we do focus on the dollars and the cents, it's not why most of us do what we're doing. Most of us do what we're doing because we want to make a difference in people's lives, and that's why the dollars and the cents flow. But we still have to have a good awareness of what makes those flow, and of what is going to push the buttons of somebody that would be a potential foreign promoter or something like that in another marketplace. You got to speak their language, and their language is, it's an event that does X, we were able to do this amount in revenue and we've got consistent track records and that sort of thing. If that makes sense.
No, absolutely. And like when you're kind of doing, like these events, let's say going around the world and doing different things, obviously you've learned a lot as you went along. So some people aspire to be actually to do what you have done. Like what things do you kind of realize that if they know this, their life would be a lot easier? What kind of things would be the critical points?
I think the sorting by similarities is a big one. It's just a big one. People make out that it's so different and they get in their own way when, they could be asking themselves, how is speaking just like parenting? If that's all they've done as a parent, well, how's it just like that? Because there's a lot of qualities that are exactly the same, that you would use in parenting that you'd use in speaking. So I think sorting by similarities is the first one if we're looking to jump into the field that way. The second thing I would say is definitely get professionally trained, because I can say that there's so many people out there that just kind of skirt by trying to do what they might perceive to be a lot, but it's just the bare minimum. Like they'll go to all the free programs, try to kind of gather information and things like that, but they don't have the foundation to really build upon, where there are people that have been in the field, that understand the field, that know the field backwards and forwards. And if you can trust those people, if they've got, if you feel like they've got your best interest at heart, they can guide you. And like, I know for a fact that most people that go out there and launch a seminar business spin their wheels and bang their head up against the wall trying to figure out and crack the code of how to make it work. And there's thousands of people online that will tell you, hey, we've got your solution. We got your solution. Many of them are just little partial solutions, or they're solutions that worked for them in one sense, but they're not necessarily the thing that's going to work best for the person. And so I kind of take a holistic view of the speaker and say, okay, what does this person need in terms of skills to up level their craft? And then what do they also need in terms of business model, in terms of really making it work and creating a business that is fruitful and profitable, that they can make the impact that they want to make in the world with. And so I think that if somebody attempts to do all that without the professional training, without really understanding the insides of it, there are people that will make it work, but they're not stacking the deck in their favor. When I did one of my first seminars, I had, I was fairly successful at promoting it and putting people in. This is early days. This is before I even had a lot of my professional training. But I did a seminar. There were probably 40 people in the room. 25 of them were from Xerox. There were a few investment bankers and different types of people in the room. But I lost half the audience at the first break because I didn't have the speaking skills at the time, and the room management skills and the rapport skills and all those things that are so critical to hold the audience in the palm of your hand. And I didn't have the skills in terms of making offers from the platform and all the little elements that really make your presentation work. And so that cost me in the early days. It like nothing changed for me until I got professionally trained. And then once I did, it was like, oh, it was like a sigh of relief. And, I started to do well and started to profit in the business and that sort of thing. So I would say, sort by similarities, get professionally trained, both for the craft as well as for the business side.
And you spoke obviously internationally. What kind of things did you learn? Because sometimes you can just assume that the audience will get this kind of thing. Was there lessons learned as you were kind of speaking in different countries?
In the different countries, everybody said people were so different, and I just don't find that. I found everybody was pretty much the same. It was fun to go to the different cultures and stuff. They said, boy, when you get over to the UK, don't go tell the Brits, don't do high five in the Brits in the seminar room, because they're not going to like it. They're going to, and it's like, we did the same things in the UK that we did every place else, and everybody loved it wherever we were. And the only audience that I had trouble with was in Singapore. I went to Singapore and they just kind of stared at me. But when I was there, we did Hong Kong and Vietnam and Russia with simultaneous translation and stuff, and all these places. For me, people are looking for, at least in my field, because I'm in the field of transformation. I help people to transform their lives, and people are hungry for that. And it's just such a pleasure being able to go out to these different places. Now, I don't like to travel as much as I used to when I was younger, but it's really a rich experience to be able to go and teach in some of these places where you wouldn't go otherwise. So I had a lot of, I used to teach in Dublin quite a bit. I was on a television show out there called something in O'Shea, Siogi in O'Shea. I don't think I don't even think it's in Ireland anymore. But been super fun to travel around the world. I was in Temple Bar District right on the night that the lead singer from the Cranberries died, and everybody was singing her songs all throughout that area. Really beautiful. Like, I think, being able to meet people and to go to different cultures and stuff, that's part of the magic of a career in speaking.
And do you kind of make it a kind of system that, okay, when I'm, say, in Thailand or when I'm in wherever, I'm going to have X amount of days, one, to get in there to kind of customize, even if just the, jet lag or whatever, and two, to stay back? Or are you just constantly traveling? What did you find served you best?
Yeah, I mean, I had different types of calendars and stuff. Like back in the day, there was one, like in 2007, I think I was 7 weeks in the United States the whole year. So I was always traveling around. And I did have to start to give myself a few days on the front end, especially going to the UK. UK was always hardest for me going that way. If I didn't take a few days on the front end, it really hurt, but I had to learn that the hard way. So, there was a time where I was doing 22 weekends a year, weekend seminars, and I was oftentimes in 3 different time zones in a week. And I was just traveling around, going to the next place, back and forth across the world. And I wasn't giving myself enough time before the event. So I'd get there and I'd just stumble off the plane. I'd be exhausted. We ended up, I really prided myself in flying coach, but then at that point we're like, no, we need to do business class seats, because I was going to be too exhausted when I got there to the event, so I could at least sleep on the flight when I was on the way. So it was a big machine, right? And I'd get there and you get onto the platform and stuff. I did learn over time, though, it was much better if I could give myself a couple of days to acclimate on the front end. When I'd go to cool places, like if I was, let's say I had a seminar I was going to teach in Sydney, Australia, and then I had a week before I had to teach in Melbourne, Australia. Well, then I might fly to Fiji or something, which was 4 hours away. So that was kind of the benefit of working in some place where where a lot of the events were in really exotic places or cool places. I would take a little bit of time here and there, like a couple extra days on the back end would always be nice if I could. There were times where it just didn't work out, but there were times where it worked out really great. I remember when I first got to Australia, my promoter said, well, we're going to be in 3 places. We're going to be in Brisbane, we're going to be in Melbourne, we're going to be in Sydney, and we have a week off in between each one. Do you just want to take a holiday during that week period? Now, what they were really saying is, do you want to pay for your own hotel? But for me, I was hearing, okay, well, where can I go?
But I suppose it's good as well recharging the batteries, because it does take a bit of energy out of it, like when you are doing these things.
Yeah, no kidding. I don't know about you, but I'm very introverted, and I'm extroverted on stage, but very introverted off stage. Do you know what you are? Or?
I class myself as an ambivert. Like, I'm either
You're an ambivert.
The life of the party, or I just want to sit back and watch everything, and I don't know when I'm leaving what way I'm going to be. It's just it is what it is, and it's like, sometimes,
right?
Yeah,
it's one or the other, though, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm kind of the same. Yeah. We're both ambiverts.
So with like the equipment and things like that, then, because I hear a lot of things can go wrong, do you bring some of the stuff with you, or do you just trust the event where you're going and what things can go wrong and how to prevent them?
I have a little kit that I put together that was my speaking kit, and wherever I go, that kit could handle up to probably 500 people in a room. And so I went and I bought I went to a guitar store and I bought just a normal guitar kit. And I found, I forget what it's called. It's in there someplace, but the 2 speakers will plug into the switchboard. And so you've got everything right there. And then you could just carry it around. So I would carry it. I check it on planes and stuff. And then I had a package for the poles. And then you've got a slide, a slide projector, and just basic, if I was doing seminars in hotels, I would rely on them for lighting and things like that, but I would bring that basic sound kit cart thing with me. As time went on, I ended up getting an AV team that would do the AV, and that took pressure off of me. But in the early days when I was starting, I used to have a little mini disc player that I would play, and they don't even have mini discs anymore, and that would be my music. But now, like, I could run the music off my phone with an audience of 300 people or something like that. I don't like to. I like it now at this point to have somebody else doing the AV, somebody that knows me really well. So because if you really want to make a seminar an event, then there's a lot of things you can do to jazz it up from an AV perspective. And like, at one point in time, I hired this guy, William Martin, and he was very expensive. He was the head of creative for Tony Robbins, and then he became our head of creative for a while. But when he came back, whenever he was running the room at the back of the event, his impact that he was able to make through the AV was equal to the impact that I was making from what I was saying, or at least that's how I felt. Yeah, it was like it was like a 1-2 punch where because you've got all the music that stirs the heart and the mind and takes them on a journey, and you've got the visuals that can do the same. And if I was talking about financial issues, like, he'd be putting up quotes from Mother Teresa to soften it. So there was softening what I was saying. So there was just really a lot of beauty to what he was able to do with the AV. So that was something that I was happy to pass over to somebody else, because if my head's in the tech, when I'm attempting to present from the heart and connect with people, it's virtually impossible to do. Like, you can do both, but if there's problems and stuff, then it's like, well, shoot, you've lost your people because of the tech side. So I'd rather give it away if I can. And then let's see, other things over the years that I learned about. I think having a kit of your own is really helps you when you're just starting, because then you can just roll up, unload, and do it. Hotels cost a fortune for their AV equipment. So like if I could avoid renting, I would always avoid renting. I mean, you rent a projector 3 times from a hotel, you would have paid for it, right? So that was pretty much how I handled it. I liked venues that were all like theater venues and stuff like that, where it's just all right there and they've got it's automatically built in the projector and things like that. Those are good types of venues. One of the worst types of venues that I ever had, I used to have nightmares that I would be in a split room with split levels where there was like the wings up top where people could look down, and I wouldn't be able to see into their eyes. So I wouldn't be able to feel like was creating rapport with them. And so I had nightmares about that. And then it happened. I had a seminar I was teaching at the Wiltern Theater in Los Angeles, and it was split level like that. And sure enough, like, because I couldn't catch the eyes of the people on top that were in the top rows. And eventually they ended up disappearing like that. And they moved around, they came downstairs and stuff like that. But having that eye contact, having the ability to create rapport is huge. One time I was in Sydney, Australia, at a place called Randwick Racetrack, and we had about 3,000 people there. And I came in, and they had a stage, but the stage was only this high off the ground. And there's 3,000 people. Well, I'm only going to see the first 3 rows standing on a stage like that. And my promoters didn't understand that you have to be able to drink the audience in and see them and hold the space for them in order to be able to connect with everybody. The promoters didn't get that. So they're like, well, just do it. I'm like, I can't do it. And so they had these big speakers on the side. And I remember climbing up these huge speakers and standing on one speaker and then running over and standing on the other speaker and delivering the seminar from there until they could bring in proper risers for the event. So I've had some very interesting things, but all these little details make all the difference in the world,
Yeah. And I suppose when you're starting off for the first few years, it's like a catch-22, because you mentioned having the guy from Tony Robbins. Like, it makes such a difference having the right team behind you. It's the same with podcasting, to be honest with you. At the start, you're doing everything, and then when you can outsource some of this stuff, it allows you to be way more creative and prepare better and everything. And it's like the same, and you have to make that jump, because you're kind of watching. Okay, this is going to cost this is going to cost. But what happens is when you do make the jump, it allows you to perform 10 times better, which in turn gives you a better return on the investment.
Yeah, it's just yep. I hear everything you're saying. I hear it all.
So you've written 3 books, so you must tell me what are the 3 books?
I wrote 2 books. That the first book I wrote was called Turning Passions into Profit, and I wrote that in 2005. I actually wrote it in 2001, didn't get published till 2005. Then I wrote another book called Instant Wealth, Wake Up Rich. And I wrote that one in 2010. So 5 years later, each one I said I would never write another book again. The third book's just a compilation book, so I don't talk about it a lot. But yeah, I've been around. I've writing the books. I'll tell you what, writing. Have you written a book?
I have, yeah. Well, there's one there I've written, and I didn't publish it because I actually I got it out to people, and they told me I'd be whacked if it got out. But I've done recently a podcast planner. And the amount of hassle with Amazon trying to get things approved, and I've done it in a few languages, and it was like, you think you create it in one language, and then you do the exact same thing for the Spanish version, and it's like going back to the drawing board, and it ain't as easy as you would assume.
Right. Now, writing a book's an interesting. It's interesting going into speaking, because I was telling my business partner at the time, I'm like, I got to write a book. This was before my first book. And he's like, why? He says, I'm not investing in a book. And he said, I'll invest in a business, but I'm not investing in a book. And I said, well, okay, but the book is going to help me from a credibility perspective. It's going to, all the things that people say in terms of writing a book. And he was right from a revenue perspective. The book would have never fed me. Either of the books would have never fed me, even though they were both best-selling books. But they were important. They were important from a media perspective. It's kind of a rite of passage, right? Once you're through it, you have a new depth of understanding about what it is that you do, because it takes a lot of research to write the book and all of that sort of thing. So the books were very important. I had one interesting experience with somebody named Robert Allen. If you're familiar with Robert Allen, he wrote the book Nothing Down. He wrote The 1 Minute Millionaire with Mark Victor Hansen, and The Enlightened Millionaire. And so I remember going to Robert Allen like years ago and said, hey, I want to talk to you. I'd like to do something together. I'd like to write a book together. And he said, great. And because that was the same way he reached out to Mark Victor Hansen. That's how he created the relationship with Mark. He's like, let's write a book together. And Mark wasn't biting. So Robert found out what flight Mark was on. And then he made sure that he was sitting in a seat next to him on the flight. And they were able to have a deeper conversation, and he persuaded him, and they ended up writing books together, and they got $1 million advances. And so I go to Robert Allen. I said, Robert, I want to write a book together. And he said, and we sat down at the Beverly Hills Hotel, and he said, great, what's the business? And I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, well, you don't write a book without a business model. What's the business model? And I said, right. He was stating what I already knew, but was kind of dumb not to think of at the time, which was, the book is the portal to the rest of your vertical. It's the portal to, the either the seminar offerings, retreat offerings, or those types of things that you're going to do. And so he was just saying, okay, what's our model? What are we going to do? Because when they wrote The Enlightened Millionaire, they did the Enlightenment Millionaire School. So there was something there that was enhancing it, and therein lies the secret to having a successful speaking business, is to think that way and put the structure in place for a successful business. Instead of just thinking about it, get the real structure in place.
Brilliant. And I know we didn't even touch on it yet, but like the AI, you go into the with that, yeah. You touch on that.
With the AI, I've been using AI a lot. Like I really love AI right now. It's the thing that's got me excited about the field again. Like I've been in the field for 25 years, but AI, like there's just so much that we can do. And the more, like I was reading or taking one course I was taking or something like that talked about the idea that everybody's calling it artificial intelligence, but we should really be looking at it as augmented intelligence, because it's augmenting our intelligence. It's augmenting our ability to produce results with it. Because if the AI is only as good as the prompts we give it or the direction that we give it. And when we have a high degree of competency in a certain area, we can then teach the AI to either think like us, or to reproduce results that we would produce, to coach like us, to speak like us. I just saw a friend of mine, she's Irish as well, and I saw she's got an avatar of herself, and she was putting an ad up where the avatar was selling something, and it was completely like you look at this thing and you go, boy, that looks real. I thought it was really her, and it wasn't. It was her avatar that was doing the sale. So it's like, that's amazing. In the old days of speaking, so like if you look at the business models and that sort of thing, and it's not even old days, yesterday in speaking, like if you looked at a company like Dale Carnegie Training, or you looked at a company like Franklin Covey Training that, have wide distribution, both have very wide distribution. They were both doing, a quarter of a billion in sales from their seminar operations. So they were like really good distribution. But when you look at that, you go, okay, well, what's their method of distribution? Right now, Dale Carnegie Training is like a franchise model. So, they've got their different franchises all over the world, and you could go and get a standardized form of training there. Well, nowadays, you could take the speaker and multiply the speaker 1,000-fold. You don't need to have franchises all over the place. You can deliver anywhere on the planet at any time of day in any language you want. And that's like for a book, it might be tough to change the language. And with AI, you can change the speaker, you push a button and you change it to Spanish. It's like, wow. And it could be this, and it could be you speaking it in all those places. So like when you look at our ability now to scale things up from what we did, like the world's a changing place as far as this goes, and there's a lot to be excited about. I think it's a race to implementation now in terms of, what are the new things that come out as a result of everything that we're able to do, the augmented intelligence that we have. And I think that we're going to get massive breakthroughs in coaching and presentation. Problem we're going to have is it's going to be hard to tell the good people from those that aren't so good when it comes to seeking education and that sort of thing. It's going to be tough to tell, because a lot of them have augmented themselves in ways that maybe we perceive them as being more real than they are. But I don't know. It's an interesting world. I'm excited by it.
No, definitely. And like the thing that I've seen with the AI, like one guy that I was liaising with, he at one stage, I don't know, was it on WhatsApp and just a conversation, and I started writing back, and then he's laughing. He said that wasn't me. So he was creating like an avatar of me based on
Oh, it
all the
was this
stuff.
chat bot?
And it's like, I did not know. I mean, normally, like, if you're going into any of these
Yeah.
different things, organizations, if you're trying to, it's a bot. This, I
Yeah.
just assumed it was him writing to me. It just shows the level that it's got to these days. Like,
It's pretty good. Yeah, mine does that too, because I put it on, like on Instagram, they say you shouldn't put it on your main account, that you should open a second account to do it because it will do the automated responses. So I've set mine up, and it was talking to people on Instagram that were just friends of mine and stuff. It's like, oh, well, I didn't want the II talking to you, or it was talking to all the wrong people. So I have to go put it on a different site.
and the thing with AI as well is like, I think it's like a Google search or something like that, because it depends on the question you ask. Because you kind of said that earlier, that, once you set it up right and do the right things, but some people are assuming because you ask AI and it gives you an answer, that that's the correct answer. And it's not.
Not at all. Yeah. I was writing a thing last night, and I asked it a question that and it got the answer was so far off base. But if somebody didn't have the advanced knowledge of the topic like I did, they wouldn't have recognized it. So it's like, yeah, you got to be aware, I guess. But I mean, the opportunities are boundless. It's like it's super super exciting right now. It's like the Wild West, though.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, then there's so many of them out there. Is there any that you think is actually worth checking out, that there's decent? Because there's a load, like, there's the free versions and the paid versions, and it's kind of hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I was trying to do stuff with me and asking about me, and then I tell it the information, assuming then that once you fed it the information, it would know. And I was like,
And it would
I
remember
was
it.
very disappointed with a lot of it, to be honest. I
Yeah.
was expecting, I was like, my son, my youngest child, would know way better than this. Like, and I'm
Yeah.
expecting this thing to be
No, I
blowing my
mean,
mind out.
for a while there, you could train it, and you could train a singular chat feed, but now they're getting dumber. So it's got dumber. It doesn't remember as long. And I think it's probably because of the costs of supporting the additional memory and stuff like that. But or they're looking to create products where they can package it to you and sell it to you for more money. Who knows? But I mean, getting good at training the AI is huge. Like, I can do things in a fraction of the time that I used to do them. That's for sure. That's real, for real. Yeah, that's legit.
And like, you talk about the $1 million mastermind, but you might let people know what's that about.
Well, we call it now the Mentor to Millions, and what I do is I've got a couple of different programs. So we've got our Fast Track to Success, which is a seminar series that I've been running for the past 25 years, that helps people. It teaches you everything you never learned in school for real world success. And so each part of that are different seminars and stuff that we take people through to skill them up, and we put the tools in your hands to design your life the way you want. So that's our Fast Track to Success training series. And then we've got our Mentor to Millions, where I just get hands-on with people and I help you to build your business from the ground up. And I'm especially talented when it comes to seminar businesses and coaching businesses and consulting and expert type businesses, because that's what we did. So I've got both of those types of programs. I've got, if people want a gift, I have a gift page. If they go to chrishowardgift.com, they can pick there's 3 different gifts on there. One, if you want to break through performance barriers. One, if you want to be a coach or a speaker, there's a gift on there for you. And one, if you want to accelerate your business success, there's a gift on there for you as well. Each one they're serious gifts. So you can enjoy those. And that's it. chrishowardgift.com. Best way to get me is on there.
Okay, brilliant. And just finally, because I mean, with the social media, it seems to be a minefield. And you mentioned about the AI with the Instagram. Like, what do you think serves you best in the industry that you're in?
Serves best in terms of what? In terms
social
of social
media,
media?
the way, like, some people are kind of they go for the LinkedIn, and some think you have to be on a few of them. Are you better off keeping away from them and just because they're a time suck as well?
Yeah. I like to think that I have an intuitive feel for it. Like, it's not the place where I've really placed most of my focus. And I wish I'd placed more on it, but Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook are like the major ones where I play. I know there's a lot of people in the field that'll play on TikTok and stuff, and my audiences tend to be a little bit older, I think. But I think playing on all of those platforms becomes really important. I remember my friend Scott Martineau. He used to have a company called Conscious One, and they were a form of a speakers bureau. But he said, I remember him coming to me one day and saying, social media is what email marketing used to be, because after all the restraints that they put on email marketing, and you can't get through to all the boxes, and sometimes it looks like spam, and it's going to but with socials, you can constantly cultivate the relationships with people and stuff. So I think that it's going to be an important element in anyone's game, is to have those socials really dialed in. And then I think that content marketing, it's a good way to market in this day and age, where you give tastes of what it is that you do, and you're always driving them back to come in and do more with us. If you like this, you're going to love what else we have to offer from a business model perspective. But I think you have to be in socials these days. I don't think you can not be in socials and expect to build a speaking business if that's what you're doing.
Yeah, oh, perfect. Listen, Christopher, thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. So you mentioned the website, you might say it again, and any other handles that you'd like people to find you.
Sure. Now, if you go to chrishowardgift.com, it's www.chrishowardgift.com. You can pick one of those 3 gifts. And I'll tell you, the 3 gifts, you get a set of tickets to our Breakthrough to Success seminar, and that's coming up. We got one of those coming up soon here. You get a set of tickets to our transformational coaching program, if you go the coaching route. And then there's a test drive of our Mentor to Millions on there. So if you want to test drive that, you can. So you got your choice of the 3 gifts when you go there at chrishowardgift.com. And I hope to see you in some programs. I'd love to be a part of your journey as well.
Perfect. Yeah. Listen, thank you very much, Christopher. And I make sure that people, when they get their book, make sure they give you a 5-star rating and share with their friends, because even though it won't make you millions, it's a funnel, and it all helps.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Okay, perfect.
Good stuff, man.
Yep, no problem.
Yeah,
so
really
I put all the links
with you.
both on the audio and the video. So until next week, thank you very much, Christopher, and take care.
Okay, Roy. My pleasure. See you later.
So I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Be sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, and share with your friends. And you'll find all my shows with the QR code or bio.link/podcaster, as well as my podcast coaching. And I'd like to thank my sponsor, DanielPacker.com, helping people with anxiety, stress, and addictions. He's got a 90% success rate, and you only pay if you're successful. Also, if you'd like to go on a podcasting tour, I can help you do that. And if you're interested in sponsorship, you can contact me on my bio.link/podcaster. Until next week, take care.